All right, testing 1, 2. Coming in late, coming in hot. Some technical difficulties earlier. Usually I like to come in a little earlier than this, but we're just going to have to go right in. Right into it. Hey, everybody. It's almost time. Okay. Here we go. Hey, everybody, back. And I made it in on time. Had some technical difficulties just before we started. Had the, I don't know, the stream wasn't going through. I was already streaming, not talking, but streaming the starting soon screen, and nothing was happening. But we got it going. We're here. Welcome back, everybody. It's Friday once again, 1 p.m. My show, Production Basics with Abe Duque. I am Abe Duque, the I guess, streamer for the day. We stream every day except for Sundays at 1 p.m. We are 343 TV. We come from 343 Labs. We have classes. We are school. We provide classes and instruction for you, both in person in New York or Berlin or online, covering everything from production, sound design, mixing and mastering. We have new classes starting all the time, so please visit our website. Anyway, welcome back, and happy to see you guys. Happy to be here again. I wanted to get right into it today. First, let me say hello to the people that are in the chat. I saw Martin Crockett here. Martin Crockett is always really happy to be the first to be waiting. He sits there maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes before or maybe more the show starts, and he just types in first again. And but welcome back, Martin. I'm glad that you're here, even if you're the earliest guy. John H. Kingston III, Powell is here. Todilas is here. Danica Becker is here. Who else is here? Oh, Max Wild is here. It's it's wine o'clock in Berlin. I guess Max has got his wine out. And let's see. Some people are saying things. Alexandro Bratz is in here. Alessandro Bratz. I have not seen you before. Looking forward to the lesson. Okay. Let's talk. Let's get right into it. So let me get back into my Ableton screen directly in there right now. So in the last couple of, I've been doing these kind of 3-class or 3-stream sort of episode trilogy things on a given subject. And we did some on playing live or on live setups. We did some on other topics. And these last 2 and now this third topic is basically all around bus treatment and mastering. And today I wanted to just continue on that. There's not enough that we can be saying about mastering. Mastering is something that eludes a lot of people, but I think everybody should know about. Now, I am the mixing and mastering instructor at 343 Labs, and I am very into teaching you guys all about it. I love to talk about it. That's why I'm talking about it these last 3 weeks. But I tell you, even with all the stuff that we talk about in the last 3 weeks, I still can't get it all out to you. There's so much to talk about. So look into taking a class with us. Anyway, what we're looking at today here is it's a Ableton set that has I call it DAT masters, because it's all my DAT masters. Now, back in the old days, the days when I started trying to get into making productions in the late 80s. And in the early 90s was when I really started my career. At that time, you needed to record music either to a 2-track reel-to-reel, which was hard to manage and get. And then, well, the age of digital hit us with these machines called the digital audio tape, or DAT for short. And you would get these tapes, and I got one right here, that you would record all your stuff onto. So when you finished the track, you got it all set up and ready to go, and you hit record on almost like a cassette, but it was digital. It recorded digital. Either at 44.1 or 48, you could record as well. And here are all my well, not all, but I've been recording because I have a whole bag of DATs, and I've been kind of getting them all into my computer so I could store them for posterity's sake, I guess. So many, and it takes so long to do. But, I've been stumbling upon old productions that I've made, and I wanted to maybe, at that time I would release them or master them in a way that well, I wouldn't master them. I would send them out to master, but they were mastered in a way that was relevant to the late 80s and early 90s, which this all has changed quite a lot. So let's try to do this, maybe based on what we know today. So let me just stop talking and let's get to playing some music here. So this track here is called Another Level. A friend of mine, Viviana Marin, who lived in my neighborhood,
reach into my groove,
came over to my house, and I said, hey, would you record some vocals for me for this track I'm trying to make? And this is it right here. And I play a little bit of it, but immediately I'm going to go
explore my mind,
getting into doing a little mastering. But let's look at what's happening in the chat. DAT, wow, still got one. Yeah, John just kicked to start. I just bought a DAT recently, a DAT machine. That's why I'm digitizing them. I went to an old
I want you to explore my mind.
guitar store. It's somewhere in the sticks around where I live now, and they had one in the attic, literally. The guy wanted $100 for it, so I took it. Let's see. Maxwell says, what about mini discs? Who remembers those? Yeah, mini discs. I had a mini disc, and I have a bunch of mini discs, but I don't have a mini disc player, so there might be some tracks on there that I might have forgotten about. By the way, we're reminded that this week's plugin is an Arturia FX plugin of your choice. So we have a giveaway. Sorry, this week's giveaway is an Arturia FX plugin of your choice. If you would sign up for it, you can have that awarded to you perhaps tomorrow at John Selway's show. Anyway, this is the track. This track was actually on my first release on my first label, which was Tension Records, and so it's my first. I would say it probably is my first release ever. Because I say that because there were some other records that I had shopped to other labels, and they released them around that same time. But I think this came out slightly earlier than those. Anyway, let's begin. So I'm just going to talk you through it. The good thing about this YouTube video is that you can kind of rewind it and watch it again. So I'm going to go pretty fast. The first thing that I like to do is I like to grab a utility device and take that and drop it into the track. with and take advantage of this bass mono feature that Ableton gives us, where you are able to mono out all the subs, and you don't really want to have subs in stereo. It just can cause problems. So it's an easy, quick thing. Now, if you don't have Ableton and you don't have a DAW that provides you an easy bass mono solution, you can easily just do this with a mid-side EQ. Just put it in side mode and roll off all the sides to about somewhere between 100 and 150 hertz will do, and you're good to go. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for, well, since it's 4 on the floor, on the 4 on the floor music, I like to cut the low end on it, meaning low end that I'm not going to use. So I'm going to grab a fab filter EQ and maybe cut out some of those sub 20 hertz frequencies. Well, this is a DeEsser. I don't need a DeEsser right now. I need a Pro Q. So dropping the Pro Q in there. And going to get this set up as a low cut. And I'll do some 36, maybe okay. And at around 20 hertz, that's going to be a good. Why I do this? Well, just getting rid of the low end that I might not need. Most of the, let me just play this for a little bit. And I think I might have this already set up in here.
I want you to explore my mind.
Yeah, it's good if I do it from here like this, because then I can
Reach into my groove.
move around in here. Let me shut down these
I
buttons
need you.
so that we just focus on what we're looking at. All these tracks that I've been trying to process, but just want to do this purple one here. Okay, so
I need you.
so if you can see, just the kick drum and the bass are living right around here. Kick drum and bass are living right around here, and down here, not too much going on, except that there is some stuff, and I like to call that kind of like the fat that you might work with when you're eating some meat and you might want to cut it out. So I'm just cutting out the fat down here so that I can have this stuff. And what happens when you get rid of the stuff that's in the lower parts of frequencies that you want to focus on, what happens is it makes it easier to have more clarity here. So we're just giving ourselves a better chance to have clarity there.
I want you to explore you.
All right, the next thing I'm going to do, the next step, I'm going to look for some resonance. So I'm just going to grab a very narrow bell. I like to look for resonance between 15 and 20 dB. I think last week Max asked us, wouldn't everything sound like resonance if you boost it up and start to swing it around, this bell around? Yes, if you go to 30 dB, you're going to be very confused as to what resonance actually is. That's why I don't like to go anywhere above 20, because if it doesn't happen there, or if it if it's going to happen, it'd be easier to tell whether it's actual resonance or just that you're pushing it too much. So 20 is about that cutoff for me. So let's just look for some resonance. And the first place that we're going to look for resonance is always going to be around that 200 hertz area. That's actually the first place. I go directly around 200 hertz, and it could be as low as 150 and as high as 250, but there's always something there. So let's check it. So we're at 70, 80, 100 hertz.
I want you.
So we're now at
I need you.
70, 200. Look at that.
I need you.
All right, so at 220 plus dB, we can hear that low end ugly ringing. Let's lower that a bit. Let's go to
Touch my soul.
10 and see if we can still hear it. I totally can hear it. And once you get to 0, if you pay attention and you're locked into listening to that frequency, most of the time you'll be able to still hear it. So I'm just going to take that and relieve that a bit.
I want you. I need you. I want you. I need you.
Remember, for cuts here, you want to keep that idea of narrow cuts. The wider you make the cut, the easier it is to tell that there's a cut there, or if you're going to take something out. You can make a wider boost if you're boosting, but narrow cuts, that's what we really want.
Touch my soul.
All right, let's see if we have any more. Probably will, but let's just look for some resonance here.
Rise with me.
So the resonance,
to another level.
one of the telltale signs of resonance is going to be that no matter what's happening, it's ringing. No matter what note is playing,
Touch
no,
me.
wherever you're playing it, just listen to wherever I drop it. There's resonance happening. There's ringing like a
I
bell.
want you.
That's kind of a giveaway there. So I'll relieve that a little bit there. And you can tell there's a little boost, a little happening there by itself. So I'm just gonna
Touch my soul.
just a little. I mean, there's a bell there that actually makes that, but in the production. But I still kind of don't want it to be too out of proportion with the other stuff. Let's look for another one. See if we find any more.
I want you. I need you. I want
I'd say that's a little bit of a resonance.
I need
And again, you look, you listen for that ringing. The ringing is the telltale giveaway. Okay, Pat Splat saying hello. Simple Sam is here. Simple Sam is always here. All right, so now I'm going to look for resonance anywhere between the 200 region that I told you about and 2K. Above 2K, I'd like to deal with the resonance that you might get there, which I stopped calling it resonance there and I call it sibilance. I like to deal with that with the DeEsser because we are a little more sensitive in this area, and you need to kind of dynamically control this. You need to be able to deal with this in a way that isn't always a cut, even a narrow cut in the sibilance zone in this area. So the resonant frequency of our ear canal is like 3,500 hertz, and the sensitivity that we have, meaning in that mid-range, so 2K, 3K, 4K, 5K, all these areas, we are really attuned to, and we can hear any little thing that happens there. So because of this, and that's across all amplitudes as well, because if you look at the Fletcher-Munson curve, you realize that across all amplitudes, you're going to get that same response. So we need to deal with it. We need to take another tool to deal with the sibilance or the resonance, which I call sibilance, or everybody calls sibilance really, that happens in this area. So a DeEsser is a compressor that lets you take a very small area and compress it, like a narrow band, and compress it. So let's just set this up. I'm going to put it in all-around mode because I'm not doing a vocal. And a lot of people think of DeEssers as only applying to vocals, but not true. When we do mastering, we do de-essing all the time. This is just something we do. Okay, so I'm going to put it in audition mode. And in audition mode, I'll just be able to hear the stuff that's happening between these bands here, or these levels here. This is 7 hertz, and this is 14 hertz. I'm going to close this down, and I'm just going to swing it around till I hit an area that hurts, that's really painful. So I find that just right there, we're in an area that's going to really, really hurt us. That's a little bit, it irks me. It's a frequency I can't take too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and make sure that and this is the amount of gain reduction we're having. And that just at the tip, when that gets too loud and that level gets too loud, that frequency is getting a bit attenuated compared to everything else. Okay, now a lot of the times when you have a well-mixed track, you won't really find sibilance around this area. But this track was done, like as I said, this track was done in 1992 or something like that, and it was done on outboard gear, no computer at all. So because of that, it was really hard to control things. But nowadays, a well mix. A lot of people that take my course, at the end of the course, we do a lot of mastering, and most of the time when they present their tracks for the mastering stage, what we get is tracks that don't present with any sibilance when you get to this point, and little to no resonance before that. Around 200 hertz, it's kind of inevitable to have a bit of resonance happening, but most people that take my course, by the time they get to this point, won't have anything but a little bit, maybe around 200 hertz. So therefore, it's very typical for me to maybe even skip this stage of looking for sibilance with the DeEsser, just in the early part of the mastering chain. Anyway, let's keep going. So now that I've got that going, I'm going to grab a bus compressor to add that initial sort of sonic hug, as Dan Wyatt used to say. Now, you Ableton users can use the glue compressor, and that's a really nice compressor for that. I'm going to use, I've been really getting into API stuff recently. So I'm going to use the API 2500. Very beautiful compressor. Some people have called it the American answer to SSL's G series bus compressor. So what I want for this is just an initial amount of compression. I don't really want it to actually even compress too much at all. What I really wanted to do is more to kind of just put it through the circuitry a bit and make these needles move just a little bit. I just really want to get that little bit of the sonic hug. So just an initial bit of like harmonics and, kind of putting together that the compressor will do. Let's see. Calico Console says, the older I get, the more I realize that I stand on the shoulders of giants. What people did and what they did with back in the day is humbling. Yeah, back in the day, if you had like a home studio would be like a 8-channel mixer with like maybe a cheap drum machine, a very basic sampler, and a rock and a rubber band, and a piece of aluminum foil. That would be your studio. Okay, so let's see. Let's keep going. So I've got the API in there. Last week I went and showed you what it actually sounds like. I'm not going to do some. It is performing some gain reduction, so I'm losing a little level here. I'm not going to gain level match it for you. You could watch last week's video to get that going. But let's keep moving. I want to get to explore some other things that we didn't do last week as well. But I just, again, want to give you the view of what it is to treat a track. So once I got the initial compression, then I want to get some EQ going. So sticking with API, let's get that 560 EQ in there. Martin Crockett talks about the Mackie 1604. Wow, the 1604, he has the VLZ. I had the original 1604, which wasn't VLZ, which was a miracle board, though. It changed everything. For the home studio, the Mackie 1604 changed everything. I remember early 90s when people started buying these things, you could finally have a decent 16-channel mixer with all these functionalities in it. Anyway, with this is a graphic EQ, and I usually just like to swing these things around and let them land where it sounds better. Look how much that brings out. It's amazing. Some of these need to be even cut a little bit. This one didn't need to be boosted.
Rise with me to another level.
Let's get it where it's playing here. It's a little boxy. I'm not gonna push it that much. That's real boxy. See what the difference is without it. Yeah, this is amazing. It always brings out some life into this. It sounds alive. Sounds kind of dead.
soul.
This thing is kind of really bassy, so I'm going to push this a little more into compression. When you push these compressors into a little harder here,
Rise with me.
you start getting, the bass starts to tighten up. It starts to go, it doesn't get really tight in the bottom, but it starts to go away.
I want you.
So I can add the, I love Pultec, so I'm going to go with that Pultec once again.
I want you.
And add some,
I need you.
whoa, where's the chain? Come on, give me that
I
chain.
want you.
So I'm going to, this is what Pultec does. Okay, too much, we don't want all that, but want to get a little bit of that attenuation curve that you can get with this Pultec boost.
I need you.
We're doing 30 hertz right now. Let's try another frequency.
I want
There's
you.
60,
I need you.
has 100.
I need you.
And
I want you. I want
kind of like 60 hertz this time
I
around.
want you.
You might notice that I'm exaggerating the use of these things initially when I really believe in exaggeration. Exaggeration is one of my favorite things, not only in mixing and mastering, but the way that exaggeration makes everything clear. Like, yeah, that's what I want. Now let's back off. So I know exactly what I'm getting when I exaggerate something. So I immediately just jump to exaggerating it, and then I'll know whether I'm barking up the right tree or not. So let's get back in there.
I need you.
Let's start putting these things together in a rack so that I can start to compare between what we had before.
Touch my soul.
This is what we had before. This is what we're starting to get now. So we're starting to mold up very nicely. Before,
I need you.
and it's starting to take really nice shape. I'm gonna put one more EQ. You know that I love the 1073. It has been traditionally my favorite EQ, the 1073.
I want you.
Although the API is making me change to, maybe saying that API is my favorite EQ, but this thing is for vocals, or I think for vocalists, for air, I think there's no better EQ for air than this EQ. So that's some high shelf, a little bit, doesn't even have to be that much, just a little touch of it gives you this nice, beautiful air on top. Look, watch this. Turn it off. Turn it on.
Rise with me.
Let's get back to the words
to another
playing.
level.
So it doesn't have the Neve on there now. Now I want to turn on the air. Look at that. Just makes it so legit sounding immediately. Look at that. It's an air machine. Air is some of the best stuff that you could have in your mix. Let's turn this off again. Let's see what we're getting here. And I'm just having fun today, once again, kind of rounding off these 3 episodes on mastering and everything that encompasses mastering. Just to remind you, we have classes on mixing and mastering all the time. It's something that a lot of people really are interested in. When you come to one of my classes, you're gonna see this done in like 10 times much more detail that I can get in these 1-hour sessions here.
I need you.
All right, let's move on to the next part.
I want you.
So now that I have the EQ taken care of, I'm going to decide whether I want to have more saturation or not. And this track was created with all analog gear. It was recorded directly from a mixing console, and I had just synthesizers, and there was nothing digital about the way this was recorded, directly to a DAT, and then now we're treating it. So because of that, I don't think it needs more saturation. There is plenty of saturation coming from all these analog processes that we already had. So I'm going to not add any tape saturation or any other thing like that. I mean, I could, But I just don't feel it today. I feel like just going straight to maybe something that I use all the time, which is that Sonics or Oxford Inflator. I find that that's a nice little device that kind of puts all the saturation. It puts an accent on the saturation that you have already, which it just people wonder what the heck this Sonics Inflator is actually doing. And really, the only thing it is doing is capitalizing on the harmonics that are there already. And if you got good stuff happening in there, it's just going to make it even better. So let's just add some. We're starting to run out of headroom here a little bit. So I'm going to take the Neve and lower the level coming into the inflator. One of the mistakes that people make when they use these plugins is they don't allow enough headroom into each plugin so that the plugin can have some room to operate. You send something super hot into a plugin, you're not really going to get the best. So I'm going to add some inflator there. And with the inflator, I can do it brighter or darker harmonics. I'm going to go with the brighter harmonics. And then let's do AB with the Oxford Inflator. A lot of people that take my class, they always talk about how they have to have this thing at the end. At the end of the course, there's usually at the beginning of the course, I usually say to people, "Hey, don't buy anything. Don't buy any plugins. Don't just watch us work here. And at the end of the course, you decide what you want to have." And there are some plugins that people just almost universally end up having. A lot of the Fab Filter stuff, for example, can be some of that stuff. But the Oxford Inflator is one of those kind of secret devices that people love. So Alessandro Bratz is asking what you mean by adding air. Well, air is frequencies that are above the sibilant zone. So we have like low frequencies, like subs, right? We so low that maybe we don't even hear it with our ears. We can maybe sense it with our bodies. So that's 12 hertz is about the lowest note that you can sort of hear with your body. And then a little bit above that is where your traditional bass is, right? And then so maybe up to 100, 200 hertz. And then above that is where the mid-range starts. And then around 2K, 2000 or thereabouts, maybe even a little higher, starts that sibilant zone that I was talking about, which is this area which is based on the resonant frequency of your ear canal or around the resonant frequency of your ear canal. Meaning this is the frequencies that we're really great at getting. We can hear these better than any. Voice and consonants and stuff appear in this area. And that's why, this area is I guess because it's for us to communicate with each other, we need to be able to hear these frequencies. But if we have too much of that, it hurts and it's very shrill. So this is where shrill S's and T's, all that stuff happen. But right above that, and officially I think it starts at 16K, but I would say it starts a little earlier, maybe around 14 or 12. But just about 12, the pain stops. You don't feel pain in your ears anymore. And, all it is like this airiness that we can still sense. Now, if you have some hearing damage, you might not hear all the air, but that stuff, the very high frequency stuff, it's very lovely stuff. It's, for me, some of the best stuff to play with for clarity. Even the things like you wouldn't even expect, like kick drums and bass lines. If you add some air to it, the clarity and those things come through like you wouldn't believe. But anyway, that's what I mean by air. Let's see. Simple Sam's traditional bass in your traditional face. Whatever you mean by that, my friend. Anyway, it's about halfway point. You're watching 343 TV. My name is Abe Duque. I'm here every Friday. We're here every day at 1 p.m. This week's giveaway, we have a giveaway for every week. It's an Arturio effects of your choosing. We give them away on John Selway's show tomorrow. He's the guy that gives away the or announces the winner, let's say that. So sign up. There's still time to sign up for it and watch the show tomorrow and see if you won. So once again, we're 343 TV. We come from 343 Labs. 343 Labs is a school. We teach all the stuff that you watch us do on a daily. We do this in class, and we do this, with much more time and detail and patience and personalization to you. Come and check out our website, 343labs.com. Take a class with us in production or mixing and mastering or in sound design and see what we can do for you. All right? And if you like what you're seeing right now, please give me a like, because I like to impress my friends with the amount of likes on my YouTube videos. And one more thing, subscribe, because we're trying to build up we're trying to get to 20K. Right now we're at 19.6. We'd be great if we can get to 20K in the next couple of weeks or so. Anyway, let's continue. So we've gotten to the point where we've got the initial reductive EQ. And if you take my classes, you'll know that I drill in the 4 considerations of the initial reductive EQ. We got that taken care of. We did some initial compression for just kind of this initial putting together of everything. Then we did some enhansive EQ using the API 560, the Pultec, and the Neve 1073. And then we topped that off with the Oxford Inflator. So now let's get back to what I would do next. So at this point, this is, again, this is a very straightaway kind of like straightforward mastering chain. It's not a fancy mastering chain. If you watched last week's video, I covered some alternative mastering techniques like New York compression, more involved parallel compression or split frequency sort of treatments, crossover. I guess you can call that crossover compression and treatment. These are very valid techniques, but for the sake of this 1 hour that we get here, all I can do is just kind of run through a traditional bass in your face sort of chain. So if you want to learn more about all the more fancy techniques, got to come and take a class with us. Anyway, let's go to the next thing. Usually at this point, when I get to the after the Oxford Inflator, I'm very keen on checking my my image. So I really do like, one of the things I like the most about what Isotope makes is the way they set up their imager. So this Isotope 7 imager I have here, I think they're up to 9. And basically this thing is going to show me
I want you to
what my
explore
frequencies
my
look like,
mind.
first of all. In the stereo picture, you have a polar sample, a polar level, a Lisa
Reach
Juice,
into my groove.
which are just different ways of seeing how stereo is playing out. When things are not stereo, they're kind of more of a stick
I need you.
instead of like flowering out the way they are right now. But now I can focus
I
on
want you to
particular
explore.
frequencies. Like right now, I'm just on the low end, and my low end looks like a stick, which is nice because I pretty much want the lows to be, it's 140 hertz and below, and I want them to be kind of very mono. So let's go to the next frequency set here. This is between 140 and 2K, and that's that area between after the low, the subs, and before the sibilants. And this is where I like to really enhance the stereo in. I really do like to bring that stereo out in this area. This is without any stereo. This is actually killing the stereo there. And this is kind of enhancing that stereo there. If you enhance it too much in the following frequencies, like this one here, it can get shrill, although I do like to enhance it a bit here. And then the air at the top, let's add a little more of enhancement there to the air. Let's see what this thing did all together.
I want you. I need you. I want you. I need you. I want you. I need.
So let's see. Alessandro writes again, do you have a method to the order you add the plugins during mastering, or does it not matter? It totally matters. It totally matters the order of operations. In my classes, I teach, reductive EQ first. And there's 4 considerations of reductive EQ, then compression, then in a mastering situation, the final thing is always going to be limiting, right? In this situation, it's probably going to be the same, but in the mixing, it's the same principles go into play. You have to there isn't a definite order of operations that makes sense for how you should be dealing with things. I would say one of the laws, let's say to begin with, is that reductive EQ is always first. We always get rid of what we don't need first, and then we move into the next stages. But yes, the short answer to that question is totally. Simple Sam, that vocal and the pad are taking me back. Yeah, back all the way to 1992 when I made that. A lot of people in watching this probably weren't even born at that point. Yes, I made that in 1992. Anyway, let's continue. And now that the imaging is set up, I'm going to add a bit. I think at this point now, I can check it. I usually make an effort to check again one more time for sibilance, because sibilance can creep up on you with all these things that I've been adding. Sibilance can really show up again. So let's just check it again for sibilance. So all around mode. Let's turn on some oversampling. And let's seek. And basically looking for harshness that hurts my ears. I'm finding some. It's not exorbitant. It's actually not there. That's a little bit of an exorbitant frequency that I can live without. So play it here so I can show you. So remember to keep that threshold right at the tip of where the sound is going. You don't want to have it compressing all the time. And that's all I'm going to do. Just take a little bit out, a little bit of the edge off. Martin Crock is asking me if it was a M1 or a D50. I had both at that time, and I believe it was an M1. The M1 had those vocal pads in it. I missed that M1. The M1 Korg M1 synthesizer was one of my favorite synthesizers. I regret ever selling it. I think you can get a digital one these days, though.
Rise with me to another level.
Okay, so let's move on. Now I'm going to go to my
Touch my soul.
Magic Death Eye to get some bus compression. So I like to approach the limiting with what we call soft limiting, which I like to basically compress a little bit before with a traditional bus compressor, which adds really nice stuff. And this compressor is really nice because it does give me 150 hertz filter here, so I could drive it quite a lot and it won't distort. It'll just keep on giving me nice stuff. And let's see what it sounds like.
I want you, I need you, I want you, I need
Let's drive that thing.
I want you, I need you, I want you.
Remember, this is performing gain reduction, so it might sound a little quieter when I turn it off than when. But that's cool. Just trying to control dynamics a bit here. And the maximum or the final control of dynamics is going to be this limiter that I'm going to put in here. And here we are. We're going to drive it a bit here. Now, let's talk about limiting. This is what I wanted to talk about today. I guess you see that kind of ticker on the top. It's like mastering and loudness. So, back when I started to teach mixing and mastering in maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, it was 10 years ago. I would ask students when we started, talking about mastering. Hey, what do you think mastering is all about? What is mastering? And the students would usually say to me, 9 out of 10 students would say, it's the process of making a track louder. And I would really cringe at that answer. I'd be like, yeah, I guess you could deal with loudness there. But at that time, it was very important to have the loudest track ever. And yes, one of the things that we can do is maximize the apparent loudness or the loudness altogether of a track for the final stage of production, depending on what the platform is. But it's not the only thing. But yes, But one of the ways that we get very loud tracks is using a modern look-ahead brick wall limiter. Now I had to say it like that because something like the Magic Death Eye or I'll show you what in older days would have been used on. I'd say 90% of tracks you've ever heard going back to the 70s and 80s and maybe even earlier would have been, hold on, where is this? It would have been this guy here. Let me just find it. And this is what the Magic Death Eye is actually based off of. So the Magic Death Eye is based off of this guy here. This is the Fairchild 670. It's a behemoth of a mastering limiter compressor. It was created for the purpose of mastering tracks. If you could find one now, it'd be like $50,000. So this thing was what would have been on the final part. It would have been the last thing on the mastering chain. If you were mastering a record in 1970 or 1985, this would have been it. This was sometimes known as a limiter in one way or another. Traditionally, a limiter, has been thought of as a device that is. Or not a device, a compressor that is set to 10-to-1 ratio or above. So if a compressor is set to 10-to-1 ratio or above, it's considered a limiter. But that is not necessarily what we get when we talk about limiters today, like the Pro L or something like an Ultra Maximizer or something like that. What we get here is something way different. This is something that only can happen in the digital world. This can only happen when you give the device the ability to look ahead. See, the thing it says look ahead. It looks ahead in time, and it could see what's coming, the transients that are coming and being thrown at it, so that it could set itself up to better handle it without it being distorted. So we can set louder levels with less distortion. Now, that sounds like a great thing. Why aren't we doing this all day and all night, right? Well, truthfully, it's not the best thing because if you push too much look ahead and drive this too much, you're going to get louder levels with less distortion, but you're going to mess up your transients. The transients are the very tips of the sound, the beginnings of the kicks and the punches and stuff. It's going to play with them and destroy them. It's going to make it dull, and it's maybe going to take your dynamic range and make a more alive track sound a lot less alive, more of a caricature of itself. So, but regardless, this is what we call a look-ahead limiter. The limiter, literally, this version of what we call a limiter has a limit. A lot of times I describe the modern brick wall look-ahead limiter as the big dumb brother of the compressor because it's not really a compressor. It really just deals with limits, and it does push back on with gain reduction based on how much it's being pushed, but it has an absolute ceiling which it cannot, nothing can go over. But regardless, it couldn't have existed before digital technology. There was no such thing as an analog limiter that did what this did with an actual ceiling. Ceilings are only possible in the digital world. And look ahead, for sure. So using look ahead is going to add a little latency into your track. Depending on the amount of look ahead, you're going to get more latency, but you're going to be able to, deal with things a little more, so you can get louder records with the use of look ahead.
I want you to explore my mind.
And with playing with a bit of attack at the release as well. Anyway,
I need you. I want you.
So let's have a look at the. I always like to look at what the meter is doing here, and what the difference is now between my peak and my RMS. So I'm going to set my peak here at -0.3. This is the maximum level that I should be able to achieve here. -0.3. It's never going to be louder than that. See, it's going to top off at -0.3. And my RMS, which is sounds that hang out for around 300 milliseconds or so, that's going to be around -6. That's where I like to shoot for. And now we have a mastering chain that I kind of like. So let's have a look and let's have a listen to what it sounded before and see what the difference is. So here we go. This is what it sounded like before. Now that's pretty impressive, but somebody you might say, well, maybe it's just because it's louder now when you do that. Well, let's see. So let's turn it off and reset this here. And you can see that by itself, without the chain on there, it's getting a peak at around -0.81, which means that,
Rise with me.
it's peaking almost at 0. This one is peaking at negative. The one with chain is peaking at -0.3. So let's grab a utility here
My soul.
and drop it at the end of the chain. And let's bring this chain down by, I don't know, 3 dB, 4 dB. That means this chain is going to be way below the 1 point. Actually, look, it's even almost going. It's actually went higher now, higher than -0.3. -0.1 is higher than -0.3 because it's getting closer to 0, right? So this track without any mastering chain is actually louder than the one with the mastering chain. So let's play it with the chain at negative. Wait, what did we do? We did, -4 dB. Look at that. The peak, it's peaking at -3.6. It's getting it right up to there. And without it, it's peaking much louder. Let's get back in here. Peaking much louder. Look at even the peak level. And look at the peak level where it drops to when I turn on the chain. So this is doing great. So let's turn it back off again. Take that utility off again, and now we get the actual nice level there. Okay, so with that, let's go to. So a lot of people, and I wanted to discuss this today. A lot of people talk about what happened now with streaming services and the way that we meter things. So we've been looking at this meter here. This is the DBFS meter. This is what we use in digital audio, decibels full scale. And we've been using those for forever until streaming became a thing. And now loudness normalization started to become a reality. And what I mean by that is that it started with YouTube. YouTube decided to add some algorithms that would analyze the tracks that you uploaded and normalize them to a certain level depending on how loud it was over time. And they started to use a scale referred to as LUFS, L-U-F-S, which some of you might have heard of. And now LUFS is it's very related to DBFS because, it does show you the same, on the same, sort of amplitude sort of plane, but it has another dimension, which is of time. So meaning that it doesn't only calculate what's happening momentarily or in the moment, but it also changes your LUF score related to, or what you might call the integrated score, related to what happens over time, 2.5 minutes or so of what's going on. So how do we know and do we care about the LUF score? Well, streaming services like Spotify will take something that's very loud, and meaning very compressed, or very dynamically compromised, like a limiter would do, or a heavy compression would do, and it stays loud for longer. They will take that track and lower it in volume so they match the score, because it's about how loud it was over time. How loud did it stay loud? How loud did it stay up there? If it had more dynamics in it, it went up and down. It went up and down. It didn't stay up there like some maybe bro step track would do. Just eat your face all the time, right? Those tracks, they're analyzed and they're lowered to match a certain score. -14 being maybe the score that people are looking for. So I have a Loudness meter in here. There's a free Loudness meter that you can get, which I installed today. I wanted to show it to you because it's free and you can all just drop it in there and get it. And I got it earlier today. It's from Uline. It's a Loudness meter that will show us what we're talking about. Now, remember, we're looking for -14. -14 is the LUF score that we want. So I play this in there, and basically we're at the LUF score, the short term. The integrated score is already getting close to -14. That's not a good thing if you're obsessing over LUF scores.
I need you.
It's hanging in there around, and the integrated one is the one we care about.
I want you to explore
Now we're under.
my mind.
Now we're way under. And the longer it stays this loud, the lower the LUF score is going to get. And a low LUF score is a bad LUF score according to certain people. Now we're looking at 10,
I want you to
-10.
explore my mind.
Oh, now it's
I want you.
9.7.
I need you.
And, over 2.5 minutes or so, or maybe the whole duration of the song, we're going to get our final LUF score.
I want you.
I'm going to just let it run a little longer to see what LUF score we might be able to kind of
Touch my soul.
get with this.
I need you.
So we're somewhere in the 8s, and I'm going to stop it now. So we got to a point where we noticed that, this is not matching the -14 one that we're looking for. And at first, when I first started to deal with this, I got really concerned about what my tracks would, be as far as LUFs. I a bit obsessed, and pretty soon after that, I stopped obsessing over it. Although I still see people obsessing over it today. Now, the thing about the LUF score and the limiter. The limiter is the biggest culprit in the LUF score. Now, if I had backed off on the limiter and maybe even some of that compression, my LUF score would be completely, would be in a better place, although my apparent loudness wouldn't be as high. But there is something about limiting. There is something about limiting that, beyond the fact that, yes, the apparent loudness comes up, the fact that you do limit or bring in the dynamic range, there's a packaging that it does that feels a lot better and makes this kind of legit sort of sound on a track that is a benefit to the track, regardless of what level you play it at. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that the limiting has a benefit. No matter what the LUFS is telling you, the limit does have a benefit. Now, there is a point where you get that benefit out of the limiting, and then beyond that, it's just getting it louder. I think you need to learn where to stop with the limiting where it's going to be great to have limiting, and then where that fence is between great and just louder. You don't want it to be just louder. You want it to just, and then after a point, it's not only just louder, but it's now louder and ugly, like completely, So there's a level of limiting that needs to happen in order for us to get this kind of packaged sort of sound. And I'm comfortable with keeping negative 8.1 LUFS. I'm good with it. I don't care. Let Spotify lower it, because it's going to be a little lower, but it's going to be the right packaged sound that I want. That's my opinion on the whole thing. Anyway, let me know what you think. Write me in the comments. Once again, I'm always, looking at the comments for questions from you guys, for suggestions on things you want to hear and want me to talk about. I'm very happy to, oblige. I know you guys have been asking and talking a lot on the chat. Let's see. Let me just have a look. Alessandro Bra says, I don't know if this is a stupid question, but how does a look ahead function work? How does it know if it will go above the threshold before it actually does? It actually looks ahead. It makes latency happen. So meaning it slows down the actual delivery of the sound so that it can deal with it and then deliver. So does it know the future? It's like it's not that it knows the future, but it's able to apply latency to the delivery of the sound in order for it to do what it needs to do and then deliver it to you. That's how the latency works. Let's see. Martin Crocker says, question: greater headroom with the mastering chain equals higher perceived loudness, correct? Not necessarily. Greater headroom. Well, that means you leave some from zero still left over. That doesn't necessarily mean there's more. I think you can have any level of headroom left, and perceived loudness can be its own sort of quotient. That doesn't necessarily have to be tied to each other. Okay, so I think we run out of time once again. So sad. Once again, please give me a like. I really love when you guys give me likes, and subscribe to the channel. Once again, you're watching 343 TV. My name is Abe Duque. I'm an instructor at 343 Labs. We have classes in New York and Berlin and on the internet all the time. I have a class starting on Monday, an Ableton class, an immersive. If you guys would like to still sign up, I think there's still some seats left for you guys to join us. We'll be going from Monday to Thursday every day for, from, I think we start at noon sometime. And come and take a class with us. If you like what you see here, I'm telling you, there's much more that we can do in these classes. This is we try very hard to give you everything we can and show you what we're doing. But if you take a class with us, it's just another level. Anyway, with that, thanks once again, and I'll see you next week. We'll have another topic. We'll move away from mastering. We'll do something else. See you then.